सुनो सुनो सियावर वे निज धाम पधार रहे बन से सजो सजो रे अवधपुरी रघुराय अभी मिलने तुमसे जय हो कहे हृदय से हम सुनो सुनो सियावर वे निज धाम पधार रहे बन से सजो सजो रे अवधपुरी रघुराय अभी मिलने तुमसे जय हो कहे हृदय से हम श्री राम जय जय राम श्री राम जय राम चारों ओर उमंगे हैं नभ में गूंजे सुर की लहरें घर राहों में अब दीपों से उजियारे की बहती नहरें जय राम 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 कहना चल रहे हैं अभिवादन करते तब हरते पृथ्वी तर से प्रभु को धरने शुभ स्वागत दे उनको सदा सुनो सुनो सियावर वे निज धाम पधार रहे बन से सजो सजो रे अवधपुरी रघुराय अभी मिलने तुमसे जय हो कहे हृदय से राम 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 जय जय राम 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 जय जय राम 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 सीता राम जय जय राम 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 जय जय राम 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 जय जय राम 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 सीता राम जय जय राम एक ही नारा एक ही नाम जय श्री राम जय श्री राम एक ही नारा एक ही नाम जय श्री राम जय श्री राम ढोल बजाओ स्वागत में मेरे घर आए हैं राम ढोल बजाओ स्वागत में मेरे घर आए हैं राम 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 जय जय राम 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 जय जय राम राम सीता राम राम जय जय राम
Namaste, Sat Shri Akal, and Jai Shri Ram. My name is Jai Bansal. I'm the Vice President of Education for the Vishwa Hindu Parishad of America. With me on the screen is my co-host Vallabha Tantriji, joining us from Minnesota. She will be handling the question and answers towards the end of this session. And on the other side of the screen, we have Chandrabhushanji joining us from Delhi. He is our media support person. And of course, last but not the least, Dr. Anand Ranganathanji is joining us. He's our chief guest today as speaker of the day. And of course, I will give him, do a little bit more formal introduction of him a little bit later. But before that, let me set the scene for today's talk. So first of all, I hope you all enjoyed a few minutes of this beautiful video music that has been specially produced for for us for the very special occasion of Sri Ramlala Mandir's inauguration on January 22nd. Secondly, a very warm welcome to you all for joining us in this important conversation on this very important subject of our of the day. What I would request before I get going and set the scene for today's conversation, I would request you to put in the chat room the location where you're joining from, so that we have some idea of the diversity of our audience today. We've had sessions where we had as many as 200, 250 people joining from 5 different continents. So there is obviously a lot of interest in this and this kind of conversations that are taking place all over the globe. So we would really appreciate knowing where you're coming from. So now, as you know, this is the 4th webinar of a series of webinars that we have organized on this very important occasion. The first webinar was held in mid-December. Shri K.K. Muhammadji, the well-known archaeologist who was very much involved with the excavation in the Ram Mandir or below the so-called Babri Masjid, and he gave us a very scintillating talk on the various artifacts, Hindu artifacts that were discovered under the so-called Babri Masjid. The second webinar took place also in mid-December, on December 10th, I believe. Dr. Sudhanshu Trivedi, another well-known and very powerful speaker, reprised the 500-year history of the Hindu struggle, starting with the demolition of the original Ram Mandir in the early 16th century by the Mughal invader Babur. And he talked about all the struggle till this very day. A third webinar, took place just yesterday, and it was on the legal case itself. And of course, we had a well-known lawyer, Shri Vishnu Shankar Jainji, talk about the specifics of the legal case that ultimately gave us the opportunity to come to this day and reconstruct the Ram Mandir. And today, of course, we have Dr. Anand Ranganathanji, and I'm going to introduce him and the specifics in just a second. We've heard all these, the history, the struggle, and so on and so forth in the 3 sessions. It still amazes me. In fact, it dazes me to think that it has taken us 500 years to come to this day. And especially 70 plus years of that was during the time when we call ourselves independent Bharat, where we're supposed to be masters of our own destiny. And this is a population that represents 80% of the nation's population. We had to be dragged through a long, drawn-out, dirty legal battle where every aspect of our dharmic belief system was challenged and castigated. So there must be some lessons that we can learn from that. And so to that end, we of course have our honored guest, Anandji, joining us today, helping us in unpacking this question. What have we learned from this struggle? And in general, the interactions that we have in the society that are going on today. And how can we utilize them in the many, many struggles that are still ahead of us? So now, Anandji actually does not need a whole lot of introduction, but tradition demands that I say a few words about him. So allow me that opportunity to do that. So Dr. Anand Ranganathanji obtained his BSc Honors degree in chemistry from St. Stephen's College, Delhi. And then he left on Nehru Centenary Scholarship for Cambridge, UK, where he obtained BA in Natural Sciences, MA, and PhD. And then he did a postdoctoral work at Cambridge also, after which he came back to Bharat to join International Center for Genetic Engineering and Biotechnology, where he ran this lab for 16 years. as a staff research scientist. In 2015, he joined the Special Center for Molecular Medicine at JNU, and then he became full professor in 2019. Of course, he appears frequently on television debates on various topics associated with politics, media, and science. His columns have appeared in many, many different news platforms. He's written many books. And with that, may I ask everyone to please join me in giving him a very warm welcome.
Thank
you,
much.
Anandji, for taking time, especially at this late hour in the evening, to be with us and to be part of this, to help us, talk about this subject of what can we learn. Now, I purposely have left the subject wide open so that you have complete latitude on taking us wherever you wish to take us. I know you've spoken on this subject many, many times with different audiences. So you have total latitude on where you want to take us today. You have roughly 40 to 45 minutes, after which we'll open it up for questions and answers. And I would request our audience to please put your questions only in the QA box because we won't be taking them from the chat room. With that, Anandji, the floor is yours.
Good evening. Thank you very much, first of all, Jayji, Vallabhaji, Chandraji, and the BHP of America for inviting me to this very important series of webinars. It really is a pleasure and an honor, and I thank you very much for it. And because the occasion is so momentous, it is so historic. Sometimes words may fail me to even encompass the enormity of the situation and how lucky we are. I thought we were possibly the luckiest generation to have witnessed the dawn of the new millennium. How rare is that? 1,000 years pass by and somebody sees it. I thought I was luckier still because I saw the Halley's Comet. In 1986, I think it was, that it flew past and my father took me to the top of a building and he showed me that. But this is just unbelievable. As you said, after 500 years, something is coming to life again. And it is left for us to answer a lot of questions, Jaji, not just a few questions. And I think in the next, you said 45 minutes, but I would like to leave a lot of time for question and answers because I also would like to learn a lot from the audience and their questions from you, from Vallabhaji, from Chandraji. So I would like to be brief, maybe half an hour or so, and then kind of like to trigger a lot of questions that I myself possibly don't know the answer to, but through this churning, through this discussion, maybe we would be a lot wiser than we were when we are right now beginning the whole series. So I think the question that is foremost in my mind, and the one that you asked, Jaji, in the beginning itself, which is quite simply, what are the lessons that we as Indians, as the keepers of the flame, so as to say, of the civilization have learned? Now, there are many lessons, but the foremost lesson, I have to say this, and I would take it that one of the reasons why I have been so honored in being invited to this is that I do not believe in political correctness. I say what is exactly in my mind. So if anybody is offended, I apologize in the beginning itself, because I think the easiest and the simplest way is the Occam's razor, and just say what we want to say. The explanation, the simplest one, is the one that is possibly true. So the first and foremost lesson that I think we as Indians have learned is that other religions and people who belong to other religions, most of them in India, overwhelming number, 99.9% are converted. The foremost lesson is that not an inch will be given to us. Not an inch. Put this in our heads. Just put it. If you believe in this so-called thing called Ganga Jamna Tehzeeb, Bhaichara, then you are living in a delusional world. You are living in an Alice in Wonderland world. Not an inch will be given. And not an inch was given for 500 years. It had to be fought and won. Not an inch will be given in Kashi. My dear friend and brother Vishnu Jain, you all heard yesterday how tooth and nail he and his father are fighting this civilizational, possibly even greater civilizational battle than the Ram Janam Bhoomi. And I'll explain to you why I say that. Not an inch will be given on Mathura, even though again Vishnu and Hari Jain ji are fighting that case. And that case is the easiest of the lot. And I'll explain that as well. Because the sale deed, the property deed does not lie with the people who've sold that land to the Muslims. How on earth can that Krishna Janam Sthan be taken over by, a set of people who have transacted with another set of people who never had the original property deed? So that itself is exemplary of the predicament that we are in. So please put it in we need to drill this, that not an inch will be given. And if you want smaller examples, you can see it all over. There was one example that is fresh in my mind that was possibly a year ago, maybe 9 or 10 months ago, that the Hindus, quote unquote, requested the Muslims to, let the Hindus use the Waqf playground for a day to celebrate Ganesh Chaturthi. That wasn't allowed. Even the land, the so-called Waqf land, wasn't allowed for 24 hours to celebrate a Hindu festival. Hindus had to go to court. So you can imagine, if for 24 hours you're not allowed, just for temporary celebration of your great God's festival, do you think you will be allowed permanent possession of something that was erstwhile yours, always yours? So this has to be remembered. And I don't say this in any way animosity. I say it as with a touch of, I would say, pathos and finality. And this is not just me. You have to read what Dr. Ambedkar talked about Islam. You have to read with a clear mind what even before him, Gurudev Rabindranath Tagore talked about Islam. And I quote, he said, there are only two religions on this earth that are determined to destroy all other religions, and they are Christianity and Islam. And the only way to make peace with them is to embrace them. This is not me. You can call me names, others can call me names as right-winger, Sanghi, Bhakt, whatever. Would you use the same epithets for Rabindranath Tagore or Ambedkar? And if you wouldn't, then at least, if not my words, at least their words would hold you to account and make you pause and think. So the first thing is that not an inch will be given. Now, if that is our baseline, where do we go forward? Quite simply, we as a people can only go forward if not the government is with us. Let's be very honest, despite a lot of platitudes, some justified, some not, that the government, the environment, the atmosphere has been created where this has been done. Let's be very honest. It is the Supreme Court and the 5-0 judgment that has given back this land to the Hindus. Yes, if the Supreme Court judgment had gone adversely, it very well could have 3-2 against or 5-0 against, who knows? And the government, through its democratic right in the parliament, had overturned the Supreme Court judgment, then I would have said, like what happened in the Shah Bano case, if BJP government had done so, then I would have said, yes, it is because of this government that Ram Temple has been reclaimed. But there was no need for that, and the Supreme Court came up with the 5-0 judgment. So we have to realize going forward, there are a lot of obstacles. And I don't want to spend a lot of time on these obstacles because this is specifically for the Ram Temple. But please remember that there lies the biggest obstacle in front of 1 billion people in the form of Places of Worship Act, 1991, and that is why I say, and I've said it in my book as well, Hindus in Hindu Rashtra, how on earth can we even think of calling ourselves as a democracy when 1 billion people are not even provided the right to approach the courts to demand justice? In a democracy, it is everyone's right to at least go to the court. Yes, the judges may opine one way or the other. The judgment may go against you or for you. But at least you have to have the right to approach the judge, approach the court. That right itself has been taken away for the last 30 years. And not only that, not only has the right been taken away, in the 2019 Ayodhya judgment, the Honorable Supreme Court has ratified, has actually said that the Place of Worship Act is good, it is important, it is vital to keep this secular notion of this country alive. Now I ask you, how on earth can we continue to call ourselves a democratic republic if the people in this so-called democratic republic don't even have the right, the legal sanctity to approach the judge to at least adjudicate one way or the other? So that is the biggest obstacle, and that obstacle will keep on appearing in the form that it does, that it will, when we talk about Kashi, when we talk about Mathura. And Ash Vishnuji, I don't know whether he talked about it, but the irony of it is that it was the Mulayam Singh government in 1993 that actually violated the Places of Worship Act by barring Hindus, by barring a family that was worshipping inside the Gyan Vyapi for dozens, decades on end. It barred it. It chopped the sacred people tree. It removed the Hanuman idols. It removed smaller shivlings from there, thereby violating the very sanctity of the Places of Worship Act that says you cannot disturb the religious sanctity of a place of worship after 1947. So they themselves have violated it. And when the Hindus demand that justifiably their temples that were demolished, you can see the demolition, you can see the pillars of the temple. Kashi and Mathura should be easier than Ram Janam Bhoomi. But believe it or not, it's going to be more difficult. But be that as it may, I want to quickly come to the Ram temple. Now, Sudhanshuji said something quite incredible in one of the debates that I had the privilege of being with him. He explained why Ram temple is important. He explained why, not only for giving lessons in what is Raj Dharma, in what is Ram Rajya, where a brother, just to keep the word, goes in exile for 14 years, where the brother to whom the whole empire has been given just keeps the kharaun for 14 years on the thing as a mark of respect and love for his brother. Where would you see such examples? Not only that, when he explains about geopolitics, and he said it's a lesson for the world, and he talked about China, he talked about Russia and the Ukraine war, and he talked about Taiwan, and he talked about all the animosity that one nation professes against the other. And he said, when Ram conquered or defeated Ravana, did he take up Lanka? Did he annex Lanka? Did he subjugate it? Did he put one of his, make Lanka a vassal state? No. It was that some evil had been done, and that evil had to be eradicated. And after it was eradicated, things should go back to the same. The world has to be corrected only through peace, only through friendship. These are the lessons that Sudhanshuji talked about, and that's just one example of why Ram Temple is going to be a lesson for everyone else. But I'm not going to talk about that because Sudhanshuji, of course, bless him, he has to be possibly be a bit more politically correct than maybe I, because he is part of the government. I just say this, that it is a shame that 200 million Muslims did not fight for getting the Ram Temple. And I'll tell you why. It is a shame because this is part of our civilization. This is not an issue which is a Hindu issue. This is not a religious issue. When people talk about empires, when people talk about civilization, and I was thinking about it the other day, in fact, just yesterday, that the grand Lutyens Delhi that was built in 1911 onward, and it took about 20-30 years, and such amazing structures were built, including what is now the Rashtrapati Bhavan, and you have this grand Jaipur column, and you have all the the princely states built their own houses, Hyderabad house, and you had Jaipur house, and you had Bikaner house, and you had all those things, Patiala house. The British never thought that the empire is going to set. You look at the plaques, you read below the Jaipur column, you read all the plaques that are surrounding the Lutyens' Delhi. It is truly that the Brits believed that this empire is going to last 1,000 years, that truly the sun is never going to set on it. They actually believed it. That is the reason for making this Lutyens' Delhi and this new state so grand. It's going to last forever. And what happened 30 years later? You know, and forget about what happened in 1947. Where is Britain now? Who is ruling the waves? Is it Britannia? You know, I'm not even going into the identity of the current British Prime Minister, but, you know, be that as it may, the fact of the matter is that empires seldom last. In fact, they never do. Even the greatest of empires, they only last a set period of times. But civilizations are not like that. Civilizations last. Our civilization has lasted 8,000 years. It is perhaps one of the only few, if not the only, surviving live civilization. The Greek civilization is no more. The Persian civilization is no more. The Egyptian civilization, Mesopotamian. But we have the Hindu, Indian civilization, Bharat civilization. I was wondering, why is that? Why are we so proud of this Ram temple being consecrated in a couple of weeks' time? Why are we having this talk? Why are people talking about it all the time? Why is the Prime Minister every waking day tweeting a Ram bhajan in the morning? Why is the nation getting ready? Why are 1.5 billion people so excited? What is their connection? And in one sense, because, Jayji, I am a Darwinian atheist, I believe I am but a bunch of cells, here today, gone tomorrow. I firmly believe, with the thrust of scientific evidence, whatever there is, that I believe in, that we started getting formed 4.5 billion years ago, 4 billion years ago, when building blocks came together, and this was reproduced in a way by Stanley Miller in 1953. And then you have the Yack-Shaw stacks, beautiful proto-cell, and then you have Stemmer's sexual PCR, and you have so many other experiments that have shown that from the basic building blocks of life, when you replicate the atmosphere of what Earth might have been, amidst water, amidst volcanic eruptions, amidst electricity, and you get the basic elements of life, and then from there you have the primitive cell, and from there you have the humans. So I believe in that. And I'm not a militant atheist. I don't force anybody to believe in that. I just put the scientific discoveries on the table, and if somebody wants to believe it, it's up to them. If somebody doesn't, that's absolutely fine by me. Why am I proud of what is going to happen in 2 weeks' time? I'm not a believer. I am proud because I am the keeper of the flame, as are 1 billion, 1.5 billion people of this great Hindu civilization. We are the 21st generation. And I say that because 20 generations have passed in the last 500 years, approximately. And those 20 generations were forced to see a mosque where a temple stood. They were forced, their eyes were forced open. They said, see, where is your Lord Ram's temple? I see only Babri Masjid there. 20 generations went by. We also could have forgotten about it, the 21st generation. We are a progressing nation. We think, well, we need money, we need resources, we need development. I have these aims, I have these things I need to do for me, for family. Why do I need to worry about this place? Why? But we do. And that is because civilizations are not like empires. The hallmark of a civilization is for our generation to correct the historical wrongs that were committed against our ancestors. For that is what exemplifies continuity. It's like memory, it's passed on. And when you read Dr. Meenakshi Jain's amazing books, you realize that for many, 60 to 80 million Hindus were killed in the last 800,000 years. And still we survive. We survive because our ancestors hid those idols. They put them in wells. They dug 6 feet, 10 feet deep, and they hid those idols, and they told then their sons and daughters, one fine day you will unearth them and you will actually do again what is going to happen in 2 weeks' time. How can we forget that? If we forget it, then we are not keepers of the flame of the civilization. Then we don't belong to this amazing concept of what civilization is. We belong to an empire that it doesn't matter to us if the people who are with us, who are deciding for us, are Britishers or they are amongst us. They are people like us. It doesn't matter. That is what happened in an empire. But in civilization, it is our responsibility. And that is the reason why I, as a Darwinian atheist, feel proud. And many people, and I've said this as a matter of pride as well, I must tell you, that I said, if I was, I've said it before, I've got a lot of flack for it. Many of my own friends, short of disowning me, have got very angry with me when I said it, but I repeat it at every juncture, because what I say, many people might say I'm wrong, but I'm so proud of it. I'm proud of being a civilizational Hindu because of this, and I said this, and I repeat it here. I said, if I was the Prime Minister, if I was P.V. Narasimha Rao, I would have rebuilt the Babri Masjid brick by brick and then waited till such time the Supreme Court adjudicated. And that is the beauty of our civilization. We, 1 billion people, we put the faith of what is most sacrosanct to us. We put it in the hands of 5 people. The rest of the world cannot understand this. Which other civilization will actually leave the decision of the most holiest of their places? 1 billion people. Leave it in the hands of 5 people, you tell me. If the most holiest of places of Islam or Christianity were demolished and some other structure belonging to some other religion was built on it, do you think those 2 billion odd people would put that decision in the hands of 5 people? Hell no. The very people who preach us to think of law, to think of law and order, they are the very ones who say, take what is yours outside of India. They are the very ones who are illegally bringing down the statues of Confederacy generals. They are the ones who are illegally bringing down the statues of King Leopold, who wreaked havoc in Congo, because they feel that, yes, he doesn't deserve to have a statue because he did something illegal. Bring his statue down. Call Churchill a racist. Bring his statue down. Break the statue of Cecil Rhodes for what he did in Africa. So outside of India, this is what the left and the Islamists do. They illegally capture what they believe, what is there. But in India, they preach us. But we don't care about what they think or what they don't. It is inherent in us, the Hindus, to be law-abiding. We left it in the hands of 5 people, and that decision, we respected that decision. So I say it with pride that ours is a civilization that is worth preserving for this. And trust me, when I see Vishnu Jainji and Hari Jainji fighting for these rights, I don't just see, and the other day he was talking about when he had to go for the survey. It was just him and his father in this old rickety car. And he was surrounded by a sea of skull cap wearing people, tens of thousands of them. And he, of course, was anxious. He's young, he's worried. And he asked his father, Babuji, ye hum kahan ja rahe hain? You see tens of thousands of people who are out to intimidate you. And Hari Jainji, his father, who was a father to all of us, he said, Zinda ya murda, hame Vishwanath ko dekhna hai. This is what is keeping our civilization alive. Nothing else, not money, not accolades, not recognition. Vishnuji and Hari Jainji are fighting 115 cases. They are Jains, you know. They are a minority, technically a minority in this country. It makes me proud. It truly does. And that is the reason why a Darwinian atheist is so proud of what is going to happen in a couple of weeks' time. Finally, I'd like to say, for all those who've always believed and spread this canard that there was never a temple underneath it. And if you remember, one of the reasons why there was so much delay in adjudicating this is because the left and the Islamists, they fought so hard, tooth and nail, to declare that there was nothing concerning Hindus underneath those Babri Masjid domes. The truth obviously came out, and the truth through Dr. K.K. Muhammad as well, and through so many others, Bibi Lalji, the recent excavations after the Ayodhya judgment, when dozens of idols have been discovered, they are all going to be resplendently, taking their rightful place in the new Ram temple. So many reliefs, marble plaques, inscriptions that prove that there was a huge temple of Hindu origin underneath it. But not just that. And this is where I believe that science has such an important role to play, Jayji. I take you back to the Turin Shroud. The Turin Shroud for 2000 years was believed to be the cloth which was used to wrap Jesus Christ when he was no more, and then before the resurrection. For 2000 years, the world believed that that was the piece of cloth that was used to wrap Jesus Christ, until in 1986 or 1985, carbon dating proved that it is only 600 years old. So this thing that people say there was nothing underneath, the Supreme Court itself has accepted, even though it was a title suit, and justifiably so. The title suits are decided on whose title it is to have that piece of land. And yet the Supreme Court went into minute details, absolutely minute details, as to the ASI and what its judgment or verdict was as far as the Ram temple was concerned. And I take you back very briefly to the fact what the Supreme Court accepted. It accepted that the Babri Mosque was not constructed on vacant land. It accepted that the excavation indicated the presence of an underlying structure below the disputed structure, that the underlying structure was at least of equal, if not larger dimensions than the disputed structure. I'm quoting now verbatim from the Supreme Court 2019 judgment. It accepted that the excavation of the walls of the underlying structure, coupled with the presence of pillar bases, supports the conclusion of the ASI of the presence of a structure underlying the disputed structure. It accepted that the underlying structure was not of Islamic origin. It accepted that archaeological finds in the area of excavation revealed significant traces of successive civilizations, commencing with the age of the North Black polished ware traceable to the 2nd century BC. And on a preponderance of probabilities, the archaeological findings on the nature of the underlying structure indicate it to be of Hindu religious origin, dating to 12th century AD. That the mosque in dispute was constructed upon the foundation of the pre-existing structure, that the layered excavation at the site of excavation has also revealed the existence of a circular shrine together with Makara Pranala, indicative of Hindu worship dating back to the 8th to 10th century. That the underlying structure which provided the foundations of the mosque together with its architectural features and recoveries are suggestive of a Hindu religious origin. This is directly from the 2019 Ayodhya judgment. Now I ask you, when you have the ASI report, when you have the Supreme Court accepting that there was something underneath that, why wouldn't 200 million of our brothers and sisters believe that to be the case? Why wouldn't? And I end by taking you back to, I'm not even worthy to even mention his name, but I did in the beginning, and I close by mentioning his name again, Rabindranath Tagore. And I say it again, not an inch will be given to us. We have to take it inch by inch. And I humbly disagree with, and I've said it on the day he said it, Dr. Mohan Bhagwat. And as I said, I don't have to be Sudhanshuji. I can say whatever is in my mind. When he said, let's not go looking for each and every shivling, wherever it may be. And on that same night, I castigated him and said, no, even if there are 100,000 masjids and 100,000 churches, and whichever place we might look, in a well, on a beach, on a warehouse, wherever it may be, we will unearth each single one of what is justifiably ours. We are the keepers of these flames. And we are not doing it for ourselves. We are not even doing it for our children, for our subsequent generations, the next 20 generations. We are doing it for our last 20 generations because they had to withstand the torture. They had to withstand that sight of not seeing this temple. We, the 21st generation, are doing it for the last 20 generations. I shall end there, Jaji. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Anandji. Your passion for Hindu civilization and its values and its history, I mean, shines through in your speech, in your talk, and we learned a lot. Thank you for sharing your thoughts.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
I see there are a number of questions in the QA box, so I also have a number of questions of my own. But I will first yield to Vallabhaji to curate the questions from the QA box and give our audience a chance to share their.
Thank you, Dr. Ranganathan ji, for the wonderful knowledge that you have shared. And as I said, the man who has shown the world how to effectively use 30 seconds in any debate. Thank you. This was a great presentation. And I will go to the chat box and, start reading out the questions. So one of the question is, the Places of Worship Act was enacted in India in 1991. This law was designed to freeze the status of places of worship as they were on 15th of August, 1947. Then why are the temples in Tamil Nadu being demolished by the ruling party?
Right. So, okay, I don't think that question is quite related to the present question of Kashi, Mathura, or this thing, because I think the Place of Worship Act talks only about disputed things. So the religious sanctity of, for example, if there is a disputed structure, and if there is a mosque, and the Hindus claim, no, it was a temple before, or if there is a temple, and the Muslims claims, no, it was a mosque before, although I don't think there is an example of that. Hindus have not built a temple on a demolished mosque. I've been asking this, and nobody has provided me with an example of that. So the demolition of a temple or the demolition of a mosque, when it is not disputed, I think it is more of a civil question. And more often than not, the judiciary also gets involved in it. It's a municipality question if you're widening the road, or if it is the land is needed for defense purposes, or railways require it. Then the temples are demolished or the mosques are demolished. So I don't think it is a religious issue.
Okay. Thank you. The other question, somewhat related to the Places of Worship Act, is what we as a public can do to, inspire the government to abolish the 1991 Places of Worship Act and the 1995 Waqf Board, in general. So what is that the normal day-to-day man can do?
Right. So in there, I just like to humbly say, first of all, thank you for asking the question. I would also appreciate, Vallabhaji, if you were to give us the identity of the person who's asked that question so that I can thank that person.
This is Hemant Patel ji.
Okay. Thank you, Hemant ji, for asking that question. Humbly, I would say that when you say what can we do as a ordinary person, I wrote a book. And I'm very thankful that that book that includes, the mentions of the 8 things that are draconian and that must be done away with. 2 of those things are exactly Place of Worship Act and the Waqf Act. And I'm very thankful for the reception that this book has got. It's 59,000 copies in 4 months that have been sold in multiple languages. So I think people have accepted it. And hopefully, I'm not saying it would inspire the government as you want, but I'm sure the government knows. And this is where I think the disappointment is but natural, because according to me, and I think Jayji and I were talking about this before this program began, that most of the people who are demanding these things are from the STEM field. Jayji was saying, because if you are a believer in logic and rationale, then you cannot be hypocritical. You cannot have double standards and believe it in one set of domain, i.e. STEM, and not believe it in the other. So logic tells you that the Place of Worship Act should have been abrogated 10 years ago. Logic tells you that the Waqf Act should have been abrogated 10 years ago. Why has it not? It befuddles me. It disappoints me. It does make me angry. I accept that. But as they say, the wheels of the governments run on its own whims and fancies. So to come back to this, Patelji, all we can do is to write and to possibly, make people aware of this as much as we can. The government should have acted 10 years ago. It's one of the most barbaric, draconian acts, and it is absolutely shameful that the Supreme Court has ratified it. And as I said, there is nothing absolutely religious about it. If a person belonging to another religion were to demand justice for the wrongs that were committed against his or her ancestors, and were to demand to approach the court to reclaim his or her place of worship, I would accompany that person, because I believe it is the first inalienable right that man can be given, and it is to seek justice. That is the only thing, the first foremost thing that separates man from animal. Not that I'm, denigrating the animal form. I love animals, but I'm just saying that seeking justice is what makes us humans, and not even allowed to seek justice. And for the last 10 years, when you could so easily overturn this draconian act and you've not done so, I don't know what more I can say except express mine and each one of ours disappointment.
The next question is, the viewer wants to know that they can understand the Islamists fighting for the disputed structure. Why were the communists against the Ram Janmabhoomi? Can you explain?
Well, communists and the Islamists call the communists as useful idiots, which they are. Whether useful or not, I certainly call them idiots. With due respect to, I think it's possibly politically incorrect to use that word anymore, but mentally challenged, I think is possibly better. The fact of the matter is, the whole ideology is so steeped, is built upon hatred for anything that you see around you. It is steeped in claiming what is yours. It is steeped in having confidence in monumental ignorance. It is steeped in showing absolutely no respect to anyone around you. To claim what was never yours and to deny what is rightfully seeking of justice for another person. That is what communism is. So, I'm not surprised that, they are what they are. And if you look at their brief history, 100-year-old history, you would realize that of every macabre act that the communists have done, they have not just been ashamed of it, they have glorified it. So, Mao is on the currency notes of a country that has 1 billion odd people. And he's revered as late as a month ago when the CPI, Communist Party of India, eulogized him on his birthday. That man killed 63 million people, his own people. 63 million. Stalin killed 10 million of his own people, and he's eulogized. In 1962 Indo-China War, when Mr. Achyutanandan, who was a tall communist leader, decided to set up blood donation camps, he was demoted by the Communist Party. So, and during Tiananmen Square, the only political party to have publicly hailed the massacre of 10,000 people in there is the Communist Party. So, what can you say? They are, I would say there is a thin line between what is human and what is inhuman, and the communists have snorted it.
Thank you, Dr. Ranganathanji. Jayji, do I have time for one more question, or do I hand it over to you?
I have time. My questions can wait. I think we need to give.
Okay. Just a couple of more questions then.
Sure.
During your talk, you did mention that fight for Mathura might be a little challenging. So the viewer wants to know, can you elaborate on why Mathura is going to be even more difficult? Is it it is a clear illegal sale of temple land by non-owners in 1968. Is it because of the current political situation? why do you think it would be difficult is the question.
Yes. So as I said, I mean, in the beginning, Mathura should be the easiest of the lot because the property deed is, it's like that film in Bunty, Bunty and Bubbly where they sold off the Taj Mahal.
Yeah.
It's exactly like that. And we have the Supreme Court in front of which this has happened. And the Supreme Court is like blindfolded, like that metaphorical Lady Justice. Can it not see? But obviously it can't, because when I talked to Vishnuji and he's elaborated this, he had to make dozens of trips to Mathura with his father into dingy police stations and God knows where courthouses to get the original deed. He's seen it. And the people who sold off the Christian Janam Bhumi Stan, that 2 acres where to the Muslim side, how much more shameless can you be? And to go back to the previous question, it's not just the communist. Many of those people in that Sansthan, I think it wasn't called the trust, Sri Krishna Bhumi Janam Bhumi Sansthan, they were from Congress. So please include, along with Islamists, the Congress and the communists. Don't forget the Congress. But the fact of the matter is, unless or until we abrogate the Place of Worship Act, nothing can be done as far as Mathura is concerned. And I dare say, as far as Kashi is concerned, the other side is going to bring the Place of Worship Act, despite what logically Vishnu Jainji says, that Place of Worship Act does not apply in the case of Kashi. But in the case of Mathura, and how cruel is the case of Mathura, because the idols were, not only was the place demolished, the idols were taken on the orders of Aurangzeb to Agra, to the Jahanara Mosque, and those broken idols provided as steps on that mosque for the pilgrims or devotees to enter the mosque. They were treading upon our idols, and they do it every day. That's why I ask you, not an inch, I'm telling you, not an, and in the case of Gyan Vyapi, you're washing your dirty feet in that wuzu where you can see possibly what Vishnuji has said, the shivling exists, but you're doing it. What explains it? You cannot reclaim through requests. It has to be a legal route, but there again, you have to get help, legal help. You have to see, the government of the day has to see sense. You have to be allowed to seek justice from the Supreme Court. Unless or until that is allowed, nothing can happen.
Okay, Vallabhaji, is it my turn, or I still have questions?
I think one last question, and
Please,
I think
sure.
this came, I mean, from the chat box, and Jayji has his own set. So one last question is, what was the fundamental reason for giving 5 acres of land to Muslims in the Ram Janmabhoomi case, and how was it justified? You are on that. Thank you, sir.
Yeah. So actually, Vishnuji's take on that is that he has, in fact, put a plea against that. Why did the Supreme Court give 5 acres of land? So according to him, it should not have been given, because when you decide through the basis of a legal judgment 5-0 that a temple existed and you give that land, why have you given 5 acres of land somewhere else? To me, I would say, वही होता है कि लड़ाई में, I'm sorry to be using a colloquial thing, but during a fight, especially a 500-year-old fight, you get so tired by the end of it. You say, "Are le lo yaar, just take it, please, just go." And I suspect that might have happened, because legally, I think Vishnu has a tight case against it. When the land was originally yours, why were you given 5 acres? But then again, the point is, anybody can buy legally any amount of land in the country. So the Muslim party could have bought 20 acres of land right next to Ram Janmabhoomi legally, So I think that's a moot point. What is bothering me, and I must say this, is the fact that I have heard that they are going to now make on that 5 acres of land that they've been given India's largest mosque. Now, legally they can do it. It's their property. They can do it. But, again, and I come back to this question of provocation upon provocation. And of course, the comparison I made the other day with Vatican City, you can't have a mosque in Vatican City. India is different. We are a secular republic, so-called secular republic, even though we exclusively control only Hindu temples. But anybody can buy a land and you can build anything there. But, in the most holiest of places for Hindus, you are making India's largest mosque that would be seen, as they claim, through, tens of kilometers away, that would tower over any other existing structure within Ayodhya. Is that not provocation? That is a question that should be asked. Can you imagine? I mean, of course, it is not allowed, but right next to Kaaba, you build, for example, a temple that is 10 times the size of, Kaaba or Makkah, Medina. Will that be allowed? Of course, it's not a democratic republic, but here you can say, but I mean, this question of provocation, needless provocation, and I go back to what Ambedkar said about Dar al-Harb and Dar al-Islam, and what Tagore said, not an inch will be given, not an inch.
Right, right.
Thank you so much. Back to
I'm
you,
sorry
Jay.
to end on a very despondent note, but
In fact, I really don't want us to end on a despondent note, because
yes,
I see voices like yours. See, I've been on this earth for more than 7 decades,
Yeah.
and I've never seen Hindu voices, throughout my adult life like I have seen in the last few years. And I can name many of them. That gives me hope. And I just want you to, I would like you to kind of help me understand, since I'm sitting 10,000 miles away from where you are, and where, those voices are taking shape, how large you think is that movement? Because at the end of the day, unless we wake up our, younger generation and connect them with their civilizational, values, their heritage, all is lost.
yeah.
So my question to you is, how large do you think is that movement?
Yes, that's a beautiful question. Let me answer it in disagreeing with you slightly, Jaji, because, and you would know this is not a disagreement. It's just, I think, emphasizing something that might have been overlooked during the course of this conversation.
Mm.
Because the fact of the matter is, and I too have a son, and mostly the information that is gathered by youngsters today is audiovisual. You know, the last time somebody was reading a book, and I shouldn't be saying this because my my book is being read widely, but the fact of the matter is, it's just possibly 1 to 2% of the information that is being disseminated is through the word. 95% more than that. And you see the way, the quickness with which the podcast culture and the videos and the YouTube has proliferated. That is the medium now. So when you say that, in your 7 decades, this is the age where you've seen so much resurgence. I think if you look back last 20, 30 years, we had some incredible icons, and you would know this, so it's chota muh badi baat from me, from my side. But you had Sitaram Goyal ji, you had so many others, and I must include Arun Shori in there as well now, even though things might have changed. But the fact of the matter is, written word held something which the youngsters don't recognize now. So there was possibly a silent resurgence. How do I say it? There was something simmering under the, there was something that was always on the boil because people were reading.
Right.
But then, of course, the visual reaches 100 times more, and the impact is so much more, because then you have your emotion that is expressed through the person who's speaking, not only through voice, through speeches, but through visual medium. So that is the reason why most of the so-called resurgence took time, waited for the technology to be, to fructify, for it to reach as many people as possible. Now, to the other question, yes, I see a tremendous wave of research, and it makes me proud. It makes me proud because, as I said, we are the 21st generation, and the generation after us, the 22nd generation, is even more conscious of the sacrifices that were made for this Ram temple to come up. So it makes me absolutely proud. So yes, it augurs very well. What also must be said is that now we have a very robust system of people, you know, are they have put their faith in this young country. You know, I mean, we say this. You look at a lot of other countries, Jayaji, that attained independence around the time we did. You know, most of them colonies. How many of them have actually had so many disappointments, ups and downs, chosen the wrong ideology, chosen the wrong economic path, and yet are here? You know, I think that's beautiful, and the youngsters realize it. And I think it's, and you know, it's the nature of the beast, I suppose, that the present government has is possibly trying to unshackle the younger generation, is not doing it to the extent I would like it to do, you know, economically. But sooner or later it will happen.
Hmm.
Trust me, it will happen. And when that happens, nobody can change the course. Yeah.
So that's wonderful. That removes some of the despondence that
It does. It does.
you had alluded to. Coming to the next question, you know, we talked about how we respect, you know, as a society, we respect our legal system and how we respected the Supreme Court decision, you know, with open arms and all that. And yet you have people like Munawar Rana. I
Yes.
don't even want to repeat the exact words he said. For someone like him to be saying those is just absolutely incredible. But so there, you know, there are plenty of voices like that who actually would go to any length to kind of retain the status quo. However, uh, then you see people like KK Muhammad,
Yeah.
Arif Muhammad Khan Sahib. There are many others like that, you know, who are obviously practicing Muslims, and they have gone on a limb to, you know, support the path of dharma. So how do you position them in the greater, you know, ecosystem that we live in?
That's a fantastic question, and I must say this. I answered this very question about 6 years ago.
Mm,
I coined this term "good Muslim, bad Muslim,"
mm,
and I believe, without being patronizing to anybody, because as I said, it's a very personal opinion, and but I do believe that to be the case, that any Muslim who does not adhere to every single word that has been ordained in the Quran is a bad Muslim, because Allah has pointed out on numerous dozens of occasions, more than that, more than dozens of occasions in the Quran itself, as to what a good Muslim is, who is a good Muslim, how should a good Muslim behave. And if you don't, and I'm not just talking about drinking or, you know, eating what is not allowed to be eaten, the behavior, so many other attributes that are given that characterize what Allah says a good Muslim is. And if you don't do it, um, you are a bad believer. But as I say, to be a good human being, you can be a bad believer, you know. So, and I would encourage people to read that 2019 article where I talk about this selective submission,
mm.
about this very phrase, good Muslim, bad Muslim. This world is a safer place because overwhelming majority of Muslims are bad Muslims. You know, and
Sure.
without being patronizing, I call Dr. KK Muhammad as a bad Muslim.
Okay. Okay. Do you care to explain that?
Yeah. So, I mean, if you look at Quran,
Mm,
if you look at all the holy scriptures,
mm,
Allah is very clear as to how a non-believer should be treated. Death is just one of the examples. You know, how a Jew is to be treated, how a polytheist is to be treated, how you cannot marry them, how you have to treat them as slaves, how you cannot befriend them, how if you are living in a country that is ruled by them, you have to have a sleight of hand, you have to be deceitful, the so-called taqiyya behavior. Every minute thing that makes you a good Muslim has been described. And that is why I say, whenever we criticize extremists, we always snare the fundamentalists, but we spare the fundamentals because we are scared, not only as a country, as a civilization, as a world. You know, we are very happy to criticize Osama bin Laden. We are
Hmm.
very happy to criticize Taliban. And the Taliban would say, why are you criticizing us? We are following the fundamentals. Don't be a hypocrite. When you read the same book, why are you not following these fundamentals that we are following? Or have the courage to say that these fundamentals are wrong. I have
Hmm.
not as yet met a single Muslim, practicing Muslim, who's had the courage to say this is wrong. I
Hmm.
should be allowed to marry a non-Muslim. I
Hmm.
cannot think like that against a Jew. Not one. So
Well,
the proof of the pudding is in the eating.
okay. So there's a saying in American Indians, so, that every person has two dogs inside him or her, a good
Right.
dog and a bad dog, and the one
Yes.
that wins is the one that you feed the most. Uh, and so I think what you're saying is that in the cases that we just talked about, they fed the good dog. They they fed their conscience over the belief system that was imposed on them by birth. Okay, I think that's a wonderful answer. Um, there is, you talked about how the sun never set on the British Empire, and I just want to invoke an odious character named Churchill, uh,
Yes.
uh,
Yes.
who actually gave a good explanation for it, as you may have come across that. And I
Yes.
said the sun never sets on the British Empire because God does not trust the British in the dark. But that has
And he
passed.
also said, history will be kind to me because I'll write most of it.
There you go. There you go. We talked a great deal about the hard evidence under the so-called Babri Masjid,
Yeah.
and we put a lot of stock in it. But you look at, of course, the Kashi and Mathura. I mean, the evidence is, all you need is a good pair of eyes
Yes.
to be able to see, what is what was what, and how it's been destroyed to create what is the reality today. You don't
Yes.
need evidence. You just
Yes.
need common sense. So I don't know, how much common sense will, actually will prevail in the so-called legal system that we have.
Yeah.
But that I think, and the same thing, you go to Qutb,
Yes.
complex, which
27 Jain and Hindu temples.
uh,
Yeah.
it's everywhere. It's everywhere. I mean, you actually have to be, sight challenged to not be able to see or have your mind completely closed. And so I'm just wondering, this emphasis on evidence, how important is that as opposed to actually an emotional movement that says this is mine. It's clearly mine. You've taken it, and we can go through the legal route. But I wonder, there is the international established principle of war reparation.
Yeah.
There are many countries that suffered during the Second World War. They're still, going in the international court asking for reparation for Second World War.
Yes.
Is there not a room for that kind of conversation to take place in our system?
Yeah, I'm actually not much for that. I'll tell you why, Jayaji, because I think that leaves a room for those who are criminally minded. Criminally minded, so they need not have committed the crime, but
Hmm.
this by those I mean, I'm defining those are the ones who still eulogize people like Aurangzeb. I call them criminally minded. You
Hmm.
know, so it's a get out clause, and I'll give you two reasons for this. I did not like what Justice Kaul said. I think he's retired now from Supreme Court. He said there should be a Truth and Reconciliation Commission
Hmm.
for the Kashmiri Pandits. I didn't like it at all. Yes, you can have it, but that should not be the end all and be all, which was the case in South Africa. I
Hmm.
mean, would I want, for example, a criminal, a murderer like Yasin Malik to sit across the family of the person whom he gunned down and say, I'm sorry, and that's it? Would I want him to just get up and walk away? No. I want him to pay for that crime. And that is the tragedy. You see, this is a get out clause.
Hmm.
And when you talk of evidence, uh, even visual evidence is evidence. So if you look at the Gyan Vyapi mosque, you see those amazing, wonderfully carved out temple pillars. That is evidence, So I don't even have to bring it to the table. I mean, in here, you had the ASI excavation, you had Dr. K.K. Mohammed, B.B. Lal, you had to do all those, excavations to find out that there was a temple underneath it until the judgment came, and after that, the digging was done for the foundation of the new temple. And then you obviously, during excavations, you found out a lot of things that confirmed it. But during the time it wasn't confirmed, you had to do the excavations. In this case, you don't have to do anything. That is also evidence, So it's not that Hindus should act without evidence. You see the evidence,
Sure, absolutely. Vallabhaji, is there any other burning question in the QA bar?
No, we are good with the chat box. So
Okay, all right, wonderful. Anandji, thank you so much for
Not at all.
for sharing your wisdom, infinite knowledge on our civilizational matters, and for being a strong voice for the Hindu ecosystem in today's world. For me, you are the next generation. And so I see people like yourself, see people like Jai Deep, and
The legend.
yeah, and others. I I see that we have probably left the world, our world in good hands. And I hope you'll be able to say the same thing when it's your time to hang up your boots. So with that, thank you very much. And I would, now that we've established, a connection with you, I would love to call upon you in future as well when, opportunities arise.
Thank you.
And hopefully you'll oblige us with your presence.
It would be absolutely. And if I can make one request to you,
Please.
that you would hopefully have the ears of the seniors in the RSS, maybe the top person himself. Please tell him that every shivling, wherever it is to be unearthed.
Yeah,
That's all.
we don't always talk about
I know.
leadership and their belief system and their what they say, but it's those beliefs are not necessarily widely held within the
Yeah.
within the diaspora.
Yeah.
So with that, I think let's close this session. And once again, बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद. Thank you so
Thank you
much.
so much, Jyoti. Such a pleasure.
Namaskar. Namaskar.
namaskar.